Like my hair's sticking up. I got a little David Lynch thing going on, I think. Appropriate meditation. Hello, everyone. Good evening. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Anna. I'm leading tonight's Metta meditation. Are there any people who are kind of brand new to Dharma Bums in general? First time? Yeah, hi. Anyone kind of relatively new to meditation or Buddhist practice? Yeah. Is anyone brand new to the idea of metta or loving kindness meditation? Is it brand new? Great, awesome. And then the other question I always like to lead with, is there anyone who would like to have or is kind of exploring or maybe struggling a little bit with having a daily practice? That daily meditation practice is something you'd either like to incorporate in your life, don't know how to incorporate in your life, try to incorporate in your life. Maybe it works a little bit sometimes, maybe others. Okay. So I also always say in this introduction that this is what we call a lay temple. So we have people from all different Buddhist traditions, and some of them, have been practicing for decades and have done retreats and formal study. Others are, simply meditation practitioners or Buddhist practitioners in their day-to-day life. And we all come together to share our own ideas, understanding, experience of Buddhism. So I am very much of the lay variety here. I'm not a historian of Buddhism. I've never practiced in a monastic setting. I've been practicing in some capacity or other for close to somewhere between 15 and 20 years. But again, I claim absolutely no authority and no knowledge. But I do like asking about those of you who might be trying or exploring how to have a daily practice, because this is like exactly the place to try asking questions about that, because it's all lay people peer to peer talking to each other. We can say to each other, this has worked for me to have a pretty consistent meditation practice. This hasn't, as opposed to someone who says, well, this sutra says you must sit in this position for this period of time, which also has complete and total value. And I encourage everyone to go check that out. But I think one of the things that this particular temple can be really valuable with are those steps that seem insurmountable. Like, how do you have a daily practice? I mean, I can barely floss every day. So one of the reasons I like to talk about metta is sort of the reason why we meditate, because there's usually a dimension of meditation which is, I want to feel centered, I want to feel calm, I want to live with more ease or more comfort, or just move through the world more easily. And then there's a very sort of, when we talk about kind of Buddhism as practice and then Buddhism as belief or a spiritual or cultural tradition, the tradition of Buddhism states that we don't practice Buddhism for ourselves. We practice Buddhism for the benefit of all sentient beings. And none of us, the world will not attain harmony and a state of essentially nirvana or cessation of suffering until we all have worked towards the betterment of everyone through our Buddhist practice. Now, that is a huge and lofty idea. And there is no expectation that you believe it or accept it to be here at Dharma Bums or to be in any Buddhist temple. But the reason I like talking about metta is, to me, metta, or the practice of loving kindness, is what connects. It builds the bridge between why I sit on my zafu or my cushion or my couch or my chair and meditate, and how I live in the world. So any one of us could sit alone, shut our eyes, shut our eyes, listen to a guided meditation, do any number of things to make ourselves feel more calm. That could include foods, it could include substances, it could include therapy, it could include, reading comic strips. It could include any number of things. But what makes it worthwhile to do it so that when I go out in the world, I'm doing less harm, I'm causing less friction, I'm creating less suffering, and subsequently, I myself am suffering less. So for me, daily practice is a short seated meditation. I keep it personally very short. I don't have time for more than that. And I oftentimes just don't have the attention for more than that because I'm imperfect. I'm not a perfect meditator. But as a teacher of mine, and I'll repeat this a lot, said, when asked, do you do a longer meditation once or twice a week, or do you do a shorter meditation every day? He said, do you brush your teeth every day, or do you wait till Saturday and brush your teeth for 40 minutes? And I think we all know the answer is you brush your teeth a little bit every day. Like, you'd be pretty gnarly if you only brush your teeth for 40 minutes once a week. So that, to me, that's the whole point of a brief seated meditation every day. And then to say a very brief metta. It's going to be a long metta tonight, but for me personally, in my practice, I say a brief 2-sentence metta every day. This is so that I center myself in my Buddhist practice as a meditator, and I set my intention and my goal to translate the reason I sit every morning to how I go out in the world. And then I was thinking a lot about what loving kindness is and why we should practice loving kindness. And I remembered this time when I was a teenager, and I was your classic sort of goth, edgy, reading too much poetry, pain in the butt. And when I started studying Dostoevsky, apart from the fact that I just thought I was beyond cool because I was reading Russian literature, I would like to add that my stepmother had bested me because when she was 18, she taught herself Russian in order to read Dostoevsky. I did not get that far. I do not speak Russian. I do not read Russian. But yes, that's the standard I was being held to. Thank you very much. There's this, when I came across this section of the Brothers Karamazov, which probably many of you have heard paraphrased, a very monastic religious person says, the more, I sort of have written it down, but I'm also going to kind of paraphrase it. The more I love humanity in general, the less I love man in particular. And it's kind of, we often paraphrase, like, I love humanity, but I can't stand people. And when I read this, I thought it was brilliant. I just thought, this is me. I love humanity, and I don't like anyone in it. And I still sometimes can use that as a justification. I don't like people, but hey, I love humanity. I do so many things to try to benefit humanity. I try to watch how I treat the earth with being ecological. I watch my purchasing practices so I don't, buy from companies that damage things. So I'm sitting here thinking, well, I love humanity. But, And here's where I'm sort of talking about the difference between sitting here and saying in Dharma Bum Temple, I am pursuing a Buddhist practice, I am engaged in a Buddhist practice, I'm engaged in Buddhist learning. This doesn't work in Buddhism. And if you kind of do the equation, you can sort of figure out why, which is that you can't love humanity without loving people, because humanity is people, right? So this sounds great in Russian literature, but I, as a learner and as a practitioner, I have to let go of this. And metta is how we do it. And so we're going to do a 20-minute guided meditation in which we bring intentions of loving kindness first to ourselves, then widening the circle to someone whom we find easy to love, then widening the circle still further to those about whom we're relatively neutral, which, if you think about it, is kind of like nearly everyone, right? Most people you don't know, you don't really have a strong opinion one way or another. And then widening the circle to include someone or people we find difficult, which, I'll get to it. Don't panic. It's not an exercise in self-flagellation or suffering. And then finally, we try to expand the circle to all sentient beings. And again, we do this in this 20-minute practice as a seated thing, as an exploration in the Sangha. And then again, I do it, in 2 sentences, just to say, okay, I'm getting up off my zafu right now. I'm getting out into the world. Why did I bother sitting on this zafu if not to go out into the world? So I'll give just a little bit of a guided meditation, as I say, about 20 minutes, and then we'll have some time for discussion afterwards. Those of you who are new to meditating, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no need for expectation or burdens. I will just guide you to sit comfortably. You can use the breath as a guide if your mind starts wandering. You can observe the thought, say, thanks, good thought, nice thought, see you later, and come back to the breath as your guide, or as your anchor. And then as I lead the metta, I spoke of this last time, but we are not engaging in an exercise about thinking about people. So when we bring to mind someone we love, we're not saying, oh, I love this person because they're kind. I love this person because they have a nice smile. Oh, I love this person because they brought me flowers that time. Did they bring me flowers that time, or did they bring me flowers the other time? It's just simply bringing to mind the object of the meditation and then letting go of the object of the meditation while leaving the intention and thought. So a teacher I had compared it to, you take the orange, you squeeze the juice, and then you throw out the rind. And I like to say we put the rind in compost because we have green bins. So if this is leading you in a direction in which you're thinking about the thought about the person, you can always bring it back to the breath and keep it relatively simple and drop the object and move back to the breath. Okay, so sitting comfortably. Taking a few minutes to settle into the silence. You can have your eyes open or closed as you feel comfortable. Sitting comfortably, bringing your attention to the breath as it comes in and out. And now, bringing to mind feelings of loving kindness for ourselves, knowing that we ourselves are inherently deserving of loving kindness. If you find it a struggle to bring to mind feelings of loving kindness for yourself, you can picture yourself in the third person or from afar. You can picture yourself as you might have been as a child or in a state of vulnerability, but feeling intentions and feelings of loving kindness for yourself with the words, "May I have happiness and the root of all happiness." May I have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now widening the circle to bring to mind someone whom you find easy to love, someone who easily gives you feelings of loving kindness, who awakens in you feelings of loving kindness without obstacles or expectations. And feeling that sense of loving kindness with the words, "May they have happiness and the root of all happiness." May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now expanding our circle of loving kindness still further to a person or a group of people about whom we are relatively neutral, about whom we have neither strong positive nor negative associations. This could be someone you see casually every day, someone in a service position you encounter in a store or a restaurant, or a group of people you simply don't know much about or don't know very well. And bringing feelings of loving kindness towards this person or towards these people with the words, "May they have happiness and the root of all happiness." May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And now expanding our circle of loving kindness to include someone or a group of people whom we might find it difficult to have feelings of loving kindness for. This does not have to be your arch enemy. It doesn't have to be the biggest challenge, although if that is where you are feeling, that's fine. It does not mean you approve of this person or people. It doesn't necessarily mean you forgive them, although it can mean that. It simply means that as all sentient beings are deserving of loving kindness as their birthright. Our circle grows to include feelings of loving kindness for those whom we might find difficult or challenging. With the words, "May they have happiness and the root of all happiness." May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. And finally, expanding our circle of loving kindness to include all sentient beings everywhere, with the intention to bring loving kindness to all sentient beings across the globe and beyond, every living thing, with the words, "May they have happiness and the root of all happiness." May they have happiness and the root of all happiness. come back together after this period of meditation. We have time for questions, answers, discussions. I'm putting my coat back on because it's cold in here. And also, I do want to add anyone online. I see there are visitors online. Welcome. Feel free to put any questions or comments or thoughts or ideas in the chat, and I will make sure to share them with the room. Yeah. I'm going to open it up for, if there were any things that were challenging that you had questions about, or, I can sort of say, how we can go through and say, how was it to start with beginning the loving kindness with yourself? Some people, can find it a challenge to that's sometimes we're socialized to be putting other people always before ourselves, and when we're asked to have loving kindness for ourselves, sometimes that feels a little uncomfortable or new or novel. Yeah.
I'm starting identifying the difference of meditation, Zen meditation, Vipassana, Metta, and what triggers you in what kind of meditation are you going to be using at the moment? Do you have a specific idea what you like to use?
Me personally, I mean, yeah, I kind of made a decision a long time ago, to follow a fairly traditional Buddhist school. I began in what would be called Vipassana. Sometimes, it also bears close relation to Mahayana, but it's, to me, it's just silence. And then, I do a Metta meditation. I have some prayers that are written by, thinkers and monks and teachers and scholars of that tradition. Personally, I think there are definitely, that's me personally, I think there are definitely people who do a kind of cafeteria style, and that's one of the things that we sort of like at Dharma Bums and feel as an asset here, because you can, come and explore. There's a Zen sit on Monday nights. There's a Tibetan Tonglen on Thursday nights. I will say, getting acquainted with just a regular seated practice is, to me, the bread and butter. That I personally, I don't think I would find growth in doing a different meditation every day. That's just me. I would say the scholarship around Buddhist thoughts and Buddhist traditions would support that, but I also am sensitive to the fact that there are many seekers, and in our Western world where we have lots of options, that can be a way for people to find their way. But I also, this is just a thought, which is to have a certain awareness around the fact that here in the Northern Hemisphere in the West, we're used to a kind of consumerist mentality where we have lots of choice, where I can choose to go to Zen one day and go to yoga the next day and go to, TM another day, and to maybe think about ways that we can strip that down for ourselves and find the essentials of what we need, if that makes sense. I hope does that reflect to you kind of what your question was? Did I?
Yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah.
100%. It's like I'm experience like new things,
Mm-hmm.
and I like Zen a lot. Just like
Yeah.
being silent.
Yeah.
But reading made me curious.
Yeah.
Like for example, how I see Vipassana. It's like when you are watching a movie and your thought goes start flowing a lot.
Yeah.
And even like for my personal use for other things besides meditation, because Vipassana helps me a lot too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get in my head thinking like, oh, I wish I had a pen here right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But myself, I like Zen. I like
Yeah.
to stay quiet and try to,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I've known and loved and respected some people who went for an extremely austere version of Zen, much, much more than what we have here on our Monday sits, where, there's formality around the robes, around the sitting position, and many people find incredible freedom in that. So again, it is a little bit of, our, as I say, there's so much choice, and it is a little bit of a, I'm not sure in when Buddhism was created in these different places. I'm not sure that they were expecting that people would one day have 12 meditation centers of different disciplines all within a 3-mile radius. I'm not sure that that's what the practice was created for, but it is how we live with it now. Yeah, hi.
Right. So I was sort of the gentleman's answer and my perspective. I was actually last night reading, in 2015, I think they redid all the direct translations of the sutras in
Mhm.
Pali. So I've always felt that for me, I'm saying, not for me. So I was reading, what does the Buddha actually say about meditation?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, afterward comes
Mhm.
3, 4 different schools. One of the main things I saw is he's not talking about, focus on your nostril, and
Mhm.
none of that happens. And most of, and I haven't finished reading it, but I was literally reading it last night. And one of the things that stood out to me is that metta meditation is 70% in the sutras, mostly discussed, not the asanas,
Mhm.
not the other.
Yeah.
This is the Buddha's own teaching.
Yeah.
Directly. So
Yeah.
just sharing that.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to reflect this to the online audience. I sometimes do a bad job, but this person was sharing that they've been reading the sutras, which are, the actual writings of Buddha. Buddha wrote relatively little about the actual practice of meditation and a great deal about the philosophies, including metta. My understanding, and again, I'm not a Buddhist scholar, is that the practices that we do, like breathing or like sitting in a certain style, were passed down by the disciples of the Buddha who transmitted the Buddhist teachings throughout the different areas of the world. So Zen in China and Japan, Mahayana in India, and Vipassana and Mahayana in Tibet. So we weren't, it never was Buddha say, breathe through your nose. It was that these people practiced for hours and years and transmitted it to other people. And then that in turn has changed. As I say, there are schools of Zen Buddhism where you must wear the robe, you must sit in complete silence, you cannot even twitch, scratch your nose, anything. That is because in that school, that was transmitted as being meaningful to those people who were teaching them. And that's, again, why we have arrived where we have. I also love, just to make a little analogy, it's always great when you do read, sort of the original thought. It kind of, when you're talking about the loving kindness, it reminds me a little bit about that thing that people sometimes say about Christianity, about how like the word, poverty and poor is probably in the Christianity, like tens of thousands of times, and then certain touch words that we think of to do with behaviors or sexualities or sins or whatever are mentioned 2 or 3 times maybe, and it's sort of like, oh well, we've kind of lost like the essence of what this text was originally meant to guide us to. But I think that's also kind of why I think of metta as like the bread and butter, because it is, as I say, from my understanding, again, not a scholar, if to practice Buddhism is to practice metta is to practice Buddhism in some capacity. Yeah, and I admire anyone who reads the sutras. I mean, sometimes the sutras can have a quality to me of just being so opaque. I need the filter of a teaching to help me understand it.
I'm not pretending that
No. I admire the effort. I really do. I feel like yeah.
The new translations are much easier.
Yeah.
Really, before that, it was just like,
Yeah.
very difficult.
Yeah. Sometimes when especially I always leave these things at my bedside, and I'm kind of half falling asleep, and then I'm like, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. What's form? Form, emptiness, what? So yeah, I totally feel that. Moving to one I love, someone who spontaneously arises feelings of love in you. Did anyone have any experiences or thoughts in that? It's fine if you don't. We can keep moving. We don't, I don't have to belabor every little thing. As I say, the thing I really like to emphasize about that is it's just that person or that being around you that just makes love, that feeling, kind of spontaneously arise in you. Some people, when they're struggling, it is their pet, which I think in an ideal world we should, because we are talking about loving kindness for people, we should maybe try to bridge to the people. But if that's where your starting place, I think sometimes that is very pure. Very dear friend had to put her dog down this morning, and I keep thinking of, that just that feeling of just that spontaneous love you have for a pet that's so uncomplicated and just so easy to access. Again, I will say, I think to pursue a Buddhist practice, we should probably endeavor to get past pets, because the reason we love pets is because they're uncomplicated. And the reason we're doing metta is because people are very complicated, and we hopefully will find loving kindness for all kinds of people. Yeah, you had a question or a thought.
Yeah, well, this has happened throughout the meditation, but specifically this one because I'm thinking of my pet.
Pet, yeah.
I get just so many images, memories, or imaginations, and I would sometimes continue repeating, or sometimes not. But my question is, if during these times where I'm not, I'm having these thoughts, or at least these images, is it considered that I am still on the object of meditation, or the object of focus? I think I was getting a little confused because, it's not a focus meditation per se, but in order to maintain on my mind on the subject, I had to focus on something, and I'm not sure if it's just a single image or the entire concept of this person.
I'm really trying. I've been leading this meditation now for probably, I don't know, it's maybe my 5th or 6th time leading, And I'm really I've been reading a lot of other ways of trying to talk about it. Because I do think I think it seems a little intuitive, and sometimes I even feel like it's a little unfair to be like, well, don't think about thoughts, don't follow the thoughts. Oh, but bring this thing to mind. I think the best way I've found to describe it is that analogy of the orange and the juice, in the sense that you're getting that sense of loving kindness from whatever that object is. And some people are visual thinkers, some people are auditory thinkers, people are very kinesthetic thinkers or feelers. And it might be, I get my dog. I feel a strong sense of loving kindness, and then I leave the object, and then I just come back to the meditation. I don't think there's like an exact formula where I can say like 20% this, 30% that. But I think for the purposes of this particular guided meditation, that's enough. And that the thought can be then dropped, in the sense that what a meditation is not is, I love my dog so much. They're so soft. That day when I was really depressed, I was, so happy to see my dog. Jeff, who is one of the leaders here, sometimes talks about, you have a thought and you let go of the thought. And he uses the analogy of hunger, where I have the thought hunger. Okay, I've had the thought, I let go of the thought. But if I think about the thought hunger, what am I hungry for? I'm hungry for a burrito. I'm hungry for a burrito. Do I want bean and cheese? Maybe no. I think I want extra salsa. And now I'm thinking about thoughts, right? And so again, sometimes when I'm meditating, I forgot to buy dishwasher detergent, just comes up. Again, I can say, okay, there's my thought. It's happened, thought. But again, if I go, God damn it, why do I always forget to buy dishwasher detergent? Well, why is it my job to buy dishwasher? And now I'm not meditating. So if that can help you, I think it's great to have that thought, that image, that impulse, that sense, that kinesthetic sense, that vision, whatever it is that brings to mind, brings to the intention of your practice, your feeling of loving kindness, and then know that that's enough. That's enough. Yeah, that's all you need.
So to clarify, the object, because I need to focus on something.
Right.
The object of focus is the feeling of loving kindness,
Mhm.
the sentiment.
Yeah.
That was brought up by
The exactly. And that's,
person or
person, exactly.
But,
And
but
that,
not the person. or the
yes,
dog.
exactly. So that's what it is, where that's the orange.
Yeah.
You squeeze the orange, and then, you can gently let the orange go and know that the feeling of loving kindness is with you. And it's actually when I've been able to access it or feel it more profoundly, I do find it very profound to sustain a meditation of loving kindness without the need for holding on to the object.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Its validity.
Yeah.
It's not like dependent on something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's supposed to hold it, somehow get the feeling, like, or you measure otherwise, and then somehow.
Then you just
Yeah.
Then you gotta get the feeling going.
Yeah.
Try to say.
And I think that's also why the whole idea of Metta leading us from here to there is, we can bring this feeling that our dog or our loved one or brings us. But again, when we're out there, we're not with our dog, we're not with our loved one. So cultivating in our meditative practice this feeling of loving kindness is ultimately what's going to serve us as beings moving through the world. Okay, so neutral. I completely lost where I was. Oh, neutral people around us, bringing to mind neutral people about whom, I mean, that's kind of like I say, it's almost everyone, right? And then the difficult person, sometimes this can be a challenge. It can be a challenge. Any thoughts, Marcy?
So for today, usually I can just focus on one, but for whatever reason today, it was like one person was like, oh, yeah, don't, you know, what, they're living in there.
Yeah.
People that I need to
Yeah.
care for my
Yeah.
kindness to. And this is the first time usually it's just like, you know, singular focus. And
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a bunch.
Yeah.
Deciding.
Yeah, it's that's kind of what I was starting with. I brought the whole Dostoevsky thing because he says, I've often come to making enthusiastic schemes for the service of humanity, and yet I am incapable of living in the same room with anyone for 2 days together. As soon as anyone is near me, his personality disturbs my self-complacency, restricts my freedom. In 24 hours, I begin to hate the best of men. One because he is too long over his dinner, another because he has a cold and keeps on blowing his nose. I become hostile to people the moment they become close to me. But it has always happened that the more that I detest men individually, the more ardent becomes my love for humanity. And I really, there are just some times when it's overwhelming how much friction we have to live with the people around us. And I think Buddhism is it's not here to solve that, right? It's not here to say you're never going to feel friction with anybody ever again, but at least to function in the world, Buddhism, the Buddhist belief way of living, says that we have to live with the baseline of loving kindness towards everyone. And yeah, some days it's just really hard. There was this day when we had a guest speaker here who was the most beautiful, serene person. And every time I went to the meditation, I was so angry and just like overwhelmed. And I was stunned because I was like, why is my reaction to being in the presence of this monastic that suddenly I am filled with hostility and rage? And it only passed after I just accepted it because, I was never going to solve it. And just breathing through it. Some days are better than others, Anybody else? And last, all sentient beings, sometimes that can feel really enormous and big. And then sometimes I find that one the easiest because it's just like, that's where I do I love humanity. Oh, it's so, picture the globe from outer space and you just bathe it with love. The crickets chirping, the ants crawling. And then you have to remember that all the people who are driving you crazy are on that globe that you're bathing with love from afar. And yeah, at the end of the day, that's what Buddhism says we can do is sit, meditate, cultivate our kindness, cultivate our compassion, and move through the world with love for humanity. It's as Jeff says, it's very, very simple and yet very, very, very complicated and often very difficult. All right, anything else before we close with the dedication of merit? Any last thoughts or questions or complaints? Anyone online? I shout here, but the camera's actually up there. Anyone online? It's disconcerting. Hi. So, all right. Well, with that, we will, if you feel comfortable, you can join your palms, bring them to your heart for the dedication of merit. May any merit gained from this practice be transferred to all beings in all directions. May all beings be at peace. May all be free from suffering. And now Marcy has our announcement.
Hello, everyone. I am tonight's host. My name is Marcy. We opened the Dharma Bum Temple 19 years ago to introduce Buddhist practice to those who show up. Those who lead are not nuns, monks, gurus, or teachers, and are not looking for students. They're simply practitioners sharing their interpretation of the practice. Every night we have different classes led by different people from various Buddhist traditions. We have a recovery sangha that meets several times a week for anyone with addiction, and our food redistribution program is every Thursday at 4:30 p.m. We have classes and programs every day, and everything we offer here is always free. We have a silent meditation on Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. and 12 noon. The full schedule is on our website and also posted on the entryway above the shoe rack. We have a lending library. If you see a book you like, feel free to borrow it and bring it back whenever you're done with it. Please straighten your seats and cushions before you head out. And if a few people could stay behind to close and latch the windows, that would be helpful. Thank you all for being here. We wish you well and hope to see you all again. Thank you.